All right, we're back. Another episode of Jack of All Trades. Today's conversation, we're going to go with the NFC West. We did some analysis on our previous shows. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at them, be sure to look at them. Basically, what we're doing is taking the top 50, 60 analysts in the NFL that predict where a player should go based on their skills. Obviously, we're not going to get into each individual player, but more of how the teams performed against the consensus value. Being the number one overall pick is going to be worth 1,000 points in this scenario. So we'll just go ahead, Jack. We're going to get into your spreadsheet again. Take a look at some of that information you have down for the NFC West, and we'll just go break it down team by team here for you.
Are you on?
Yep, there it is.
All right. So what? I got the Rams up right now. Not to go in any particular order, but the Rams. The funny thing about the Rams is it's like a team. The whole point of this exercise is kind of to respect the value. It's like a trader, that you buy things below value, sell things over value. That to think of value in some sort of sense like that, in an ROI, return on investment. The Rams are just a team that doesn't really respect that. They're any kind of value. They're kind of a win now, mortgage everything for today type team. In that, they, and you can argue that it was not terrible because they made it to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. But to go all in, like last year, they had such high expectations, and then the season's getting late, and quite frankly, if you were following value and you're following who was good and who wasn't good towards the end of last year, I never thought the Rams were very good. I never thought they were going to make the playoffs. It was the deck was kind of stacked against them. And they kind of dumped in to get Jalen Ramsey and traded away their first round pick, which was worth 269 points on this model, which is, would have put them to a total of 462. So they end up drafting. They end up trading back and get some picks. So they ended up only drafting out of 300 points of value on this. And just a quick look at it, you get, as picks go, up at the top is where the surefire picks are here, 400, 300, and it declines fast. And then once you get like into the third round, picks really start to third, fourth round, those are no longer premium picks. So if you look at the Rams, sorry, I got to do a lot of scrolling here. I went the wrong way.
A lot of information to cover on there. So yeah.
Yeah. So while they only had 300 points, they threw up some negative. Didn't maximize those 300. The picks that they had, even after giving away that first round pick and making some trades, and so they end up netting like 280 points. It's not much at all. There's quite a few teams that only got that. KC, but they were the Super Bowl champion. Just scrolling through, you look at the Chargers. 730. They still netted 650. That's a lot more than the Rams. And now you're looking at the Rams that aren't even a playoff team, and they are definitely a team that they cut the greatest amount of dead cap money ever with Brandon Cook. So what I would just quickly talk about the Rams draft, and that it showed no regard for value. They're still kind of this trying to do everything to win like right now, and there already is a price to pay for some of the stuff they've done that way. I don't believe they have a first round pick next year. Anyway, it's one way to do it. They're kind of like all in all the time, and you just kind of press you keep the foot on the gas, kind of like the Saints are doing. But as far as if we're looking at how they drafted, I would just say terrible. I guess they had a bad pick, a good pick here in the third round. They got a lot of value, but they had such bad value in the three other picks around it that it netted out there to negative value.
Yeah, the team certainly probably gonna Goff as the quarterback. Try to, while you have him, do what you can with him. It looks like, I don't know, it looks like a lot of different players coming into that team. It almost seems like it's going to have a different look and feel this year to me. But let's shoot over to the Seattle Seahawks. What do you got for Seattle in this draft? How they?
Well, I mean, it's funny, I talk about the Rams not respecting value as a team, as an organization, on a bunch of different levels on whether they mortgage future for salary and that. Seattle is like that on steroids. Seattle is like the team that respects value the least in the NFL, year in, year out. This year was just another typical example. I mean, they had drafted position from 453 points, that they're starting with, would be like and they lost 299. It's unheard of that their return on investment was only 154 out of 453, or you could look at it 154 out of their expected draft position of 462. And it's like, well, why do you, how do you get that bad of a number? It's not arbitrary. It's like their first pick. I mean, you look at all these teams, as you look at this column here, can you see this F? Like, this is like the actual value of these players. And you see 400, 300, 333, all these big numbers. And then, of course, you see the Raiders. They're kind of a culprit for reaches. They took an 82-point guy, but not to be outdone, Seattle comes down here and takes a 49-point guy at a 216, expectation. I mean, it's off the map. It's a who is this guy, Brooks? I believe it's a linebacker, like at a position where there was a value linebacker taken right after him, and Patrick Queen. It's just what Seattle does. I don't even know. It's like Maryland and crab cakes. I mean, it's Seattle is every year. It's funny. I got last year's draft, and I wasn't planning on clicking over to it, and the numbers are a lot smaller. So let me scroll down to Seattle here, and can you see that?
A little more zoom, please.
All right, so let's go here. But look at their first pick, and I did it differently, but it was negative 123. So if I go to their first pick, L.J. Collier, again, these teams, like Houston's kind of a weird team when it comes to value too. So they hit one pretty bad, but you get a lot of 200, 300, 200, and then you get down to L.J. Collier, 80. It's just, and it's like, I'm never gonna kill a team for one pick. They're gonna have reasons, but just the idea that year in, year out, Seattle, I'm back to this year, Seattle does that. And then a guy did an article, Arif Hassan, and you can find it somewhere, and he talks about Seattle's draft picks over the last, I think going back to 2014 or whatever, but it was like they had a good year around there. They hit some draft picks, and they've basically been living off that entirely. That they haven't had, and they had some good draft picks last year, and you can see they respected value better last year than they did this year. I think they got 400 some points out of 500 some points versus this year where they got 150 out of 450, but they still had a really big first round reach last year. But the point is, their draft picks over the last 6 years have been terrible, and that's on the result. I like to, when we're doing this value exercise and this return on investment, this is the consensus versus your draft slot. And so the only way to judge that is right now, when you don't have any more information to see how good the player is, and the idea is that over time that will pay off, because over time you probably don't know more than the other 32 teams combined. It's hard to outsmart 31 teams. So, and that's just kind of Seattle, I think a lot of people who evaluate rosters and team would, a lot of people think Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in the NFL, and Seattle gets, a pretty shoddy roster around him, and to me that has a lot to do with just not respecting value. And they got such a lottery ticket when they got Russell Wilson, in the middle of the draft. So I don't know. I that's about for Seattle. I mean, it's hard for me to overstate how horrible. It's just negative player, negative, 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 negative. I mean, here you're getting 16 points of value. They're minus 15. That means they took a guy. Everybody's worth a point. So they took a guy who wasn't even supposed to go until the end of the draft. They took him in the fourth with their fourth pick of the draft, which looks like it was a fifth rounder. But anyway, there, Seattle. If you're looking at it as a this exercise as a return on investment, they get an F minus.
Yeah, with blatant disregard to how the rest of the league values these guys coming into the league, it certainly seems they totally neglect that, and they're going to do it their way. Whatever, that's fine. Do it your way. We'll see how that works out for them. Obviously, Russell Wilson, like you mentioned, the guy's just he's a phenomenal player. So you have him, that helps. Let's shoot over to the Arizona Cardinals. You have what do you got for the Arizona Cardinals? They got the young QB in place. They pick up the wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's definitely. Yeah, sorry, I talked over there. Yeah, Arizona's definitely a better. It's going to go down as a better draft here if I could ever find it. There they are. They didn't have a lot of picks but they had a high pick early, and then they got rid of some bit. But if you look at they held value really high on these first two picks, so they end up getting a lot of well, I have to go back and look and see who they took 67th. That's a major steal there. Yeah. But so they come in with, because they traded away some picks. And so they were, instead of having 665, they were drafting at 521. But they did so well with their, getting some quote steals, some high valued players to the consensus, that they picked up an extra 236 points, which their 757 gets them better than their draft slot. But so they took this guy with the 67th, a third round pick worth 67 points. Let's, we can go see who that was. And what's cool is you can, zone in on this 67 value. So here's Arizona. It was Josh Jones, it's a tackle that a lot of people really liked. And some people had him, in the first round. Yeah, he had this, estimated to be like a 29th pick of the draft. So, and that's a high value position, tackle. We think of, tackle, corner, wide receiver. Obviously, quarterback's the highest value position. So you look at last year, Arizona took a quarterback with the number one pick, super high value position after spending a first round pick the year before on a quarterback. But that's value. It's great value. Nobody offered them enough, or they even though they were wrong about Josh Rosen the year before, they just said, we're still going to respect value. We'll still take a quarterback number one overall, or you either take a quarterback number one overall, or you make somebody pay you through the nose for that pick. You gotta get value for that. And then now they're building around that. I was extremely skeptical of Cliff Kingsbury, as a college coach who really hadn't been that good in college, to come in and take over an NFL team. And I'm still a little bit, out there on like, okay, we'll wait and see. But, Kyler Murray looks like a great quarterback. He reminds me of a Russell Wilson with more speed in his legs. And, he throws the ball really well. So we'll see. I can't at all, argue with what Arizona did with their draft. Great value.
Yeah, see, Arizona is an interesting team. They're obviously coming up with a young QB. They're kind of trying to get everything figured out with the new coach. Give them a few years. We'll see what they do with it. But yeah, that's kind of the point of this whole analysis is finding value. And the reason we're not grading players individually is because we just don't know how they're going to perform in the NFL, and how could you before they actually have some sort of a career. And then we'll get into San Francisco 49ers. They obviously made it to the Super Bowl last year. Solid team. They probably have some of the same core guys coming back mostly.
Yeah, I mean, so San Francisco, did I scroll over? I'm like, jeez. San Francisco is interesting because, they're similar to the Vikings, where they got rid of a really good player, but they got a really good draft pick for him, and there they are. So they were able to, get a big time draft pick, for a guy, and then it's a high price guy, and that's why they got rid of him. It's and the name escapes me. He's the D tackle they traded for the Colts first round pick, and you're sitting as a Super Bowl runner up with 337 points of value, and so you're not expecting a very big draft, and then you go out and you trade away arguably your best defensive player, but a key player on the defensive line on a team that really controlled teams like Green Bay and Minnesota in the playoffs, and then really held down Kansas City in the Super Bowl with a great defense, with a very good pass rush. So that's a gamble. It's definitely a short-term loser. I mean, they go out and get Javon Kinlaw with value in that first round. So he was like considered probably the best defensive tackle at that position, and there's nothing wrong with that as far as but to think that he's going to come in and replace. Now, I've been sitting here trying to remember I've been trying to remember the name of the guy they traded. It's crazy. It's a household name. So I'm just gonna cheat here and go find the Colts. Do you remember who they traded?
I'm looking. I can't remember his name. I know I should. I watched him.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's an age thing. A name escapes you, and now we've got an internet thing because this isn't pulling up the Colts roster. Here we go. DeForest Buckner. So it's DeForest Buckner. They trade him, but and I wanted to show this anyway. Can you see this on my? I've got overthecap.com here. So
yeah, you could zoom in on that. That'd be even better, but it's up.
I can't. I don't believe. I'll just show you here. So his cap number is $23 million. So, that's what the Niners were looking at having to pay him $23 million on this year's cap. He got the long-term deal. So this is a big money guy. I mean, this is a proven guy. Like I said, he was arguably their most important defensive player. I mean, you're splitting hairs. I think he was a top player. So what the Niners did was created some room and then went out and drafted the replacement. But to say that Javon Kinlaw, and I'm going to the Niners here. I'm trying to think here. I shouldn't. Yeah. So just to look at, I don't know if he's under contract, so they have him yet, but no, they don't have the rookie salaries up. So, but you look at the Niners and their cap situation. They only have now $16 million, and I don't think they've signed all their draft picks. So they'll have even less than that once they sign them. And as we saw, DeForest Buckner was $24 million on the cap, so they were over the cap. I mean, they had to do some things, and this was like the one thing they thought they could get they could get by with, because they do have, you know, a good defensive line, and you know, it's a gamble, you know, but it's a interesting gamble for a team like San Francisco, who was in the Super Bowl. But I'm not gonna criticize that, because in general, if you kind of have an idea on your team of how good they are, and you know, to me, if I'm the Colts going to get that guy, I got a part of me is kind of wondering, like, well, you know, what's wrong with him? You know, am I getting as good a player? Is he gonna do what he did for San Francisco? You know, in my scheme, because why is San Francisco not, you know, valuing him? Maybe, you know, they think some of the stuff was schemed up for him, and he was playing alongside a Nick Bosa and Armstead and some of these other guys who were great players too. So we'll see. It's a big ticket trade, and it's got a big ticket draft, and then Buckner, how he pans out with the Colts. You know, it could go either way. I don't think anybody did poorly on that. I would say their second pick, where they had 230 points expected and gave away 88 points. I'm trying to remember what they drafted with their second pick. It was a late first round. Oh, Ayuk, Brandon Ayuk, the receiver. Yeah, high value position. So then I'm not going to be as hard on the 88, you know, lost ROI. You know, receiver is a high value position. We hear a lot about scheme fit and how they like his athleticism after the catch, and comparable, not maybe body type, but comparable to Deebo Samuel, and kind of hit anyway. So yeah, I'm not going to beat that draft up. I'm not going to. I don't go gaga like a bunch of people. Oh, Ayuk, he's this great athlete, and the things that Shanahan will do. It's like, all right, we'll see. You know, I'm guessing he won't be a huge impact his rookie year. I mean, I would guess it's a long shot that he could do the same type of damage that Deebo Samuel did, but you know, everybody's that way. I'm not going to over speculate that side of it, but I will say, like, you know, the consensus says he wasn't worth that pick. So I find it kind of weird when I hear a lot of San Francisco people and a lot of national people, you know, saying what a great pick it is. And it's like, well, I don't think it's a great pick. You know, it's like, I think they maybe could have traded back and still got him. You know, when you see that he's rated, you know, I'm trying to see what the pick was for him, but 88 points. I mean, he was considered, you know, more of a second round guy, not a first round guy.
Right, and there seems to be a lot of wide receivers this year and this year. So if you don't, probably another guy too, pick up a couple straight back. Who knows? We'll talk about that strategy in the other episodes. But we just want to show you our analysis, Jack spreadsheet analysis on the NFC West, and be sure to like and subscribe down below. And if you want to reach out to us, you can get Jack Newman on Twitter at Jack Viking on Twitter. You can reach me at First Gator over there on Twitter. But thanks for tuning in to this episode, and be sure to tune in next time on Jack of All Trades.